Welcome back to the Blue Chip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at the matchup between our Tennessee Volunteers and the UConn Huskies. So just to kind of get this whole thing started, I know I normally do a whole lot of keys to the game for the entire team, offense and defense, but in this one, I've only got one key to the game, and that is to come out focused and take care of business. Something that you're going to hear me say throughout this entire video is Tennessee is the better team physically. We should be able to come out and execute whatever the game plan is at a very, very high level. Let's get this game put away early. Let's get some of the younger guys, some of the backup guys into the game so that we can see how they look, and let's go ahead and get ready for Mizzou. Now let's go ahead and jump into the stats and the matchup between Tennessee's offense and UConn's defense. All right, so I'm going to start this thing off talking about the key players for UConn on defense. But before I get into that, just wanted to mention that this UConn team is coached by Jim Mora. He's an ex-NFL coach. He's coached in college, and they are very, very well coached. These guys do play hard. They just don't necessarily have the horses to be able to compete with Tennessee. So with all that being said, let's jump into the best player on UConn's defense, and that's Jackson Mitchell. He's a 6'1", 235-pound middle linebacker. He's number 8. He's leading the team with 81 tackles. He has 1 sack and 1 interception. All right, so this is a guy that, Tennessee's going to have to kind of look out for. And, again, he's probably not going to wreck this game. I don't think they have anyone on offense or defense that's going to wreck this game. But he is a guy that Tennessee's offensive line and, our front is going to have to look out for and make sure that we, kind of have him blocked. So next guy is Bryce Yates. He's a 6'3", 270-pound defensive end. He's number 90. He's got 3.5 sacks on the season and 1 forced fumble. Now, again, this is not too much of a big concern, right? He's their leading sacker with only 3.5 sacks. Keep in mind, UConn does not play anywhere near the same type of schedule that Tennessee plays. So their level of competition is a lot lower than what they're going to see this weekend. All right, so the next guy is Chris Sharon. Okay, he's 5'11", 193 pounds, and he plays nickel for UConn. He's number 7. He's got 2 interceptions on the season and 1 forced fumble. Now, I actually really like the way that UConn played defense up against South Florida. For those of you that don't know, our OC from last season, Alex Golesh, is the head coach of South Florida, and they run the exact same offense that Tennessee runs. So, that was a good game for me to kind of gauge how they're going to play Tennessee's offense. And, I like the way that they do it from a, fundamental and, scheme perspective. Again, they just do not have the horses to really be able to match up to what Tennessee's going to be able to show them and give to them on the football field. Now, number 7, this guy, he does a good job playing that nickel position. He does come up and help in run support, and he does a pretty good job in coverage. You can tell he's a guy that tries to make plays. He's looking for that ball. He's keen on it, and he understands what the offense is trying to do. So we just have to make sure that we're looking out for him, and not necessarily just him, but just looking out for people being inside of our passing lanes whenever we are running plays. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers between Tennessee's offense and UConn's defense. So Tennessee is ranked the number 28th total offense in the entire country with 443.5 yards per game, 6.2 yards per play, and 28 touchdowns on the season. UConn is ranked number 101 in the country in total defense, giving up 404.5 yards per game, 5.7 yards per play, and 30 touchdowns on the season. Let's jump into the passing. Tennessee is ranked the number 74th passing offense in this country with 1,774 yards, 221.8 passing yards per game, 13 touchdowns, completing 64% of our passes. We've thrown 4 interceptions, given up 14 sacks, which is good for 1.75 sacks per game. UConn's defense is ranked number 84th in passing, giving up 1,898 yards on the season, 237.2 yards per game, 11 touchdowns, giving up 65% completion on passes, and they have 5 interceptions. This is an area where, again, Tennessee does have to be a little bit careful with the way that we are throwing the football. Again, UConn does a really good job of kind of being in the correct places to try to stop what Tennessee's offense is going to do, especially in that passing game. Now, we're going to get into the rushing stats here in just a second. Rushing is where I think we'll really be able to open things up and, some different formations and sets. will also help. I'm not going to go too far into that this week. I just don't think that it's necessary because, again, this is a team that we should be able to dominate in pretty much any set, pretty much any play. We're physically better than UConn on every single level, especially up front. And, I think that Tennessee's passing offense is going to be just fine. All right, now for the rushing numbers. Tennessee is ranked the number 7th rushing team in the country with 1,774 yards, 221.8 yards per game, 5.5 yards per carry, and 15 yards on the ground. UConn's defense is ranked number 97th in rushing defense, giving up 1,338 yards on the season, 167.2 yards per game, 4.34 yards per carry, and 18 touchdowns. Now, as we kind of just started to talk about, I really believe that Tennessee's offensive line should create some huge gaping holes for our running backs to have an absolute field day running the football. This is a game that I think Tennessee can rush for well over 300 yards in, even after our backups kind of start to get into the game. But biggest deal is just going to be, can Tennessee put this game away early, get some of our starters off of the field as early as possible, get out of the game healthy, and, see what these younger guys can do. I'm more so concerned with, us just taking care of business in a game that you may not necessarily be getting up for and, could be looking ahead to the next team. I want to see that we can come out, handle business, and then I want to see how our underclassmen and backup guys look for what this team could shape up to be next season, and also obviously who is going to be our key depth players. Now let's take a look at UConn's offense versus Tennessee's defense, and let's start off with some of their key playmakers on offense. All right, so starting it off with Taquan Robertson, who is UConn's quarterback. He is 5'11", 205 pounds. He's number 6. He's got 1,275 yards on the season, only completing 57.8% of his passes. He has 8 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Those numbers don't necessarily look great, but he's a very capable quarterback. This is something that we said last week, with Leary. He was a guy that his numbers didn't look great, but if you watch him on film, you can tell that he's very capable of making things happen. This is definitely a game where Tennessee's going to have to keep him bottled up. Now, he's capable of running, but he doesn't really run a whole lot. He's a guy that will extend plays with his legs, and he's a gunslinger. He's not afraid to throw that ball into coverage, which to me kind of speaks volumes about the fact that he's only thrown 3 interceptions. He is accurate. He's got a pretty good arm. Okay, it's not terrible. He's not the biggest, strongest, or fastest guy, but he is a good athlete, and he's the guy that Tennessee's going to really be keen on throughout this game. Now for UConn's running backs. Let's start off with Victor Rosa. He's their starter. He's got the most carries. 5'11", 205 pounds. He's number 22. Okay, he's got 78 carries on the season, 405 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Now, he did kind of get banged up, playing up against South Florida, and I believe that game was last week, so not quite sure if he's going to be playing in this one. But the thing about UConn is their offense is just so evenly balanced. They do pretty much everything is like balanced. So from the run to pass ratio, I would say it might be about 55% run and 45% pass. Really balanced, but not just that, they distribute the football to pretty much everyone on their roster very, very evenly. And, that's just goes to show how well coached they are. You can't necessarily key too hard on one thing. Again, Tennessee's going to outmatch them physically, especially up front. So it doesn't really matter what they're going to try to do or how balanced that offense is. We just have to kind of have a good general idea of what the offense wants to do and kind of, be able to read our keys and be able to get into our running lanes, into our passing lanes, to be able to stop what it is that UConn likes to do. So Victor Rosa is a really good running back. We're going to get on to the next one, and that is Cameron Edwards. 5'10", 202 pounds. He's number 0 on the roster. 362 yards on the season, 5.1 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 71 carries. Okay, so like I just said, everything is very balanced. He looks very similar to what Victor Rosa looks like from a size perspective and, from a carries perspective, yards per carry, touchdowns, all that good stuff. He's a very similar running back, okay? Both of these running backs are guys that can pretty much do it all, okay? They're guys who can run through some tackles if we don't come up and tackle hard, and they can also beat you with speed. They have good patience at the line of scrimmage as well. And, again, I just feel like this is an area where we should be able to come up and bottle them up pretty, early on in their plays, and they should not have very much, if any, success. Now on to the third running back, who is actually a defensive lineman in Jelani Stafford. Okay, so he's 6 feet tall, 303 pounds. He's number 97, and he actually has half of their touchdowns. Okay, so he's got 6 touchdowns on 12 carries. He's the guy that they bring in like the fridge, for those of y'all who, remember that from way back in the day. He's that type of a running back, okay? He's the guy that comes in for the short yardage plays. And that's a whole lot of body for a guy that's only 6 feet tall. So it is going to be difficult to be able to tackle this guy. You got to go low. And, I fully expect for us to kind of be able to stop him before he gets started. And hopefully he doesn't get very many opportunities, because again, he's only utilized in short yardage situations, especially around that goal line. There's no reason that UConn should ever be in our red zone, but if he is, I promise you, number 97 is a guy that this defense will be looking out for very, very heavily. All right, so moving on to their playmakers on the outside, we're going to start off with the wide receivers. The first one is Cameron Ross. He is 5'11", 185 pounds. He's number 7. He's got 31 catches on the season for 338 yards. That's good for about 11 yards per catch, 1 touchdown. The next guy is Brett Buckman, 6 feet tall, 201 pounds. He's number 10, 31 catches on the season, 335 yards, 10.8 yards per catch, 1 touchdown. Okay, so again, those are the guys that they target the most on the outside. And as you can see, the numbers are very, very close. The ball is spread out just very, very evenly throughout this offense. There's like 8 or 9 guys on this roster that has 1 touchdown receiving. So that just goes to show you, you can't necessarily key in on just one guy throughout this game. Next guy is the tight end, and his name is Justin Jolly. He's 6'3", 232 pounds. He's number 17. He has 26 catches, 319 yards, 12.3 yards per catch, and also 1 touchdown. So this guy is obviously pretty small for a tight end. We talked about this the other day with Ethan Davis. Ethan Davis is 6'5", about 240, and he's too small to play tight end for us in our system. So that, again, this kind of goes to show you the difference in size, speed, strength, all that between these two teams. Now, he is a really good receiving tight end. And, he, just like everyone else on their roster, plays really, really hard. So he's going to fight for those extra yards. He is a guy that we had to make sure that we have bottled up. But again, this is just going to be more of a test for our starters to see how focused they can come out in the game that they don't necessarily have to get up for, or, some people can kind of loaf off in this game and we could still, have a whole lot of success. Will we come out, take care of business, and do what we're supposed to do? And then for our younger guys, how can they come out and compete in, what will be a whole lot of these guys' first real game reps throughout this season? Now to get into the numbers, okay? So UConn's offense is ranked number 114th in the country in total offense, gaining 315.9 yards per game, which is good for about 5 yards per play, and they have 20 touchdowns on the season. Tennessee is ranked the number 26 total defense in the country, giving up 327.5 yards per game, 4.8 yards per play, and 18 touchdowns on the season. All right, now for the passing statistics, okay? UConn is ranked number 111th in the country in passing. They've gained 1,448 yards, which is good for 181 yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, only 56% completions. They've given up 9 sacks, which is good for 1.1 sack per game. Tennessee, on the other hand, on defense, has the number 61st ranked passing defense in the country, giving up 1,779 yards through the air, 222.4 yards per game, 8 touchdowns, giving up 66% completions, okay? 7 interceptions, 29 sacks, which is good for 3.6 sacks per game. So again, kind of like we just talked about, right? This is a game where Tennessee should just be dominant, especially up front. I think that Tennessee's pass rush is just going to be too much for this UConn offense. Now, it does look good that they've only given up just about like 1 sack per game. But again, the level of competition, teams that they've played up against is nothing like what Tennessee has, and Tennessee is very dominant getting after the passer. So I think that that by itself is going to really benefit Tennessee's defense. Also, Tennessee's playmakers on the outside, our secondary, our linebackers are going to match up very well with what UConn's going to try to do in the passing game. As long as we can keep Robertson inside of that pocket and get, enough pressure on him to kind of, get some errant passes thrown. This is a game that I really feel like our playmakers should be able to come up with some interceptions, with some turnovers, and we should be able to put this one to bed pretty early. All right, now for the rushing statistics. UConn is ranked the number 90th team in the country in rushing. They've got 1,079 yards on the ground. That's good for 134.9 yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry, and 12 touchdowns. Tennessee's rushing defense is number 19th in the country, only giving up 841 yards on the season, 105 yards per game, 3 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. So, again, front seven is going to be dominant in this game. You know, I've seen UConn's offense. They do have some wrinkles to it, okay? They will run some option plays, and, you know, they'll do a few things that can kind of get the defense, you know, eyes in the wrong place. But as long as we are focused on what it is that UConn is trying to accomplish in this game, we'll be just fine. I know that our linebackers are going to have a really, really big day, and our defensive line is going to have a really big day. I will say this, though, you know, UConn's offensive line, they're not the biggest, strongest, or fastest guys, but just like everybody else, and I keep saying the same stuff, but it's very true, they are going to play hard. They have really good fundamentals, and, you know, you can tell that that offensive line takes a lot of pride in their work. So it's not going to be as easy as a lot of people may think in this game. UConn is, you know, what, 1-7 this season, and they've lost to some bad ball clubs, but the only game that they really got blown out in was up against Duke. So that should kind of go to show you that they're not a terrible team. And I mean, we're just going to have to be really, really focused and come out and take care of business to be able to put this one away as early as we all want to. So with all that being said, let me go ahead and get into my score prediction for this game. I think that Tennessee's up by at least 30 points going into the half. And I think that we can see Nico come out and get some reps with the starters, you know, maybe at least one series with the starters to start our second half off. And, you know, I think that he scores on that drive, probably, you know, start to sprinkle in some more of the backup guys. And from there, the real question is, how confident are we in that, you know, backup second, third, and fourth string offensive line to protect Nico and to protect some of our other playmakers? Because whenever you look at guys like Cam Seldon, okay, he's a guy that this team utilizes in other places, right? So we've just got to be careful, okay? So biggest question for me is going to be, you know, how long do we see the guys that can really put up points in this game? If we only see them for maybe half of the third quarter, and if we kind of start to get into more of the, you know, freshman guys that haven't really played a whole lot, this one could kind of get, you know, a little bit more balanced. But I think that at the end of the day, Tennessee wins this one 56-10. And, you know, again, I feel like it's going to be a very, very dominant game. We get to see a lot from our underclassmen and from some of these backup guys, and we have a good idea of what this team will look like moving forward, you know, throughout this season, you know, from a depth perspective. And I would say maybe even more importantly for these younger guys, what the team will look like next season. So thank you all as always for tuning into the channel. Please make sure to like, subscribe, share this video, hit that notification bell, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.